Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am here with my good friend and brother, Austin Park. And Austin, describe and tell us a little bit about your company and the industry, and then I'm going to ask you a ton of different questions about how you got started in business, what challenges you've had, obstacles, and just industry specific questions.
Yeah, awesome. I'm Austin Park. I own Visual Installations. We're a nationwide company that installs signs and graphics. It's basically skilled labor. We work for a lot of big print shops and major retailers that you don't think about the guy that puts the graphic on the windows or wraps the vehicle, or the fleet. You just drive by the down by the semi on the interstate and you see the graphics on there. You walk up to the Walmart or the Chase and the graphics are there. That's me. That's what we do. So we're about
And it's a
600
much bigger
installs.
industry.
Do I?
It's a pretty big industry.
It is. I've been doing a lot of research on my own industry more than just because I want to expand so big. And with some new numbers from 2021 and some of 2022 are out, not all of them, but we've increased since I think it was 2017 and 2018. We went from like almost a $30 billion industry where we just hit 40 billion as an industry, and that's huge. That's a really big deal. And funny thing was, COVID actually propelled it forward because all of the little round stickers and then the directional stickers and the directional signage and all the stuff that they did for marketing, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Whether you disagree with it or agree with it, it was just one of those things that people did. That's where they spent the money. So you look at the people that spent money, and that was one of the places where they spent it so much, just because anything in the advertising space in general is just super valuable. Like, people use it. I mean, look at places like Times Square. Um, I'm sorry, man. This thing is just won't stop beeping.
That's all right. No worries. So,
I just unplugged it.
hey, that
Uh,
works. So, what
yeah,
got you
it's just
into it?
crazy. Do what?
What got you into it?
Well, I actually have a lot of experience working with my hands. So I grew up on a farm. I did construction and things like that. I was a missionary for 3 years and did a lot of humanitarian stuff, using my hands and stuff. So I'm pretty handy with that. And my first company was construction, and a friend of mine who's in the industry that I'm in now asked me to help with an install, and it was real close to one of my favorite fishing spots down at the Skyway Fishing Pier in St. Petersburg. I was like, yeah, man, I'll go fishing. I'll take care of that for you. I didn't even ask him how much it was. I just said, yeah, I'll help you out. And I went down there, finished it in about an hour, and then I got an email with a PO for $600, and I was like, $600 for less than an hour of work. I was like, and I'm traveling, and I would be traveling around. I was moving around a bit, and I was like, I'm just screw construction. I'm doing this. And I was just like, and I enjoyed it. That was the other part that was funny. That particular one was just a removal,
Uh,
but I just liked the feeling of a job well done. That's what I liked about construction, doing trim carpentry and stuff. But it's the same thing with signs and graphics. When you wrap a vehicle, when you put it on the window or the walls, like, it's just a good presentation. And so yeah, it was just one of those things that felt good. It paid really well, and $600 is more than I'm making a week at the time. It was like I was making like what, $12 an hour or something like that. And I was just like, yeah, I'm getting into this. We're doing this instead. And I tried to do both for a while. It didn't work super well.
no.
So I just closed down construction. I tried to sell it briefly, but really I was just like, this is just taking up so much of my time to try to keep both things going and travel. It's just not working. So I just closed it down. But
Got it.
yeah,
What do you think? What do you think the barriers to entry are in your industry?
very low. Barriers to entry are pretty low. I mean, if you're pretty good with your hands, you can do it. I mean, if you're just putting up decals on a window, imagine putting on the phone protector, the screen protector on your phone, just on a larger scale.
Yep.
And the truth is, on a lot of the major retailers, they're not as picky as like wrapping a Lamborghini. So you can kind of, if you stick with the major retailers and you stick with something that's, a rollout, it's not quite as picky. It's just putting the door hours up for a bank or something like that. It's not bad. I mean, the tools are specialized and you got to know how to use them. But I mean, if you're brand spanking new, if you're just straight up green, we're like, I want to try this out. You can go to, I think in Florida, the 3M school is called, it's done out of a company called Geek Wraps down in Fort Lauderdale. 3 days of doing that, and you get your certification, and you can get started. I mean, wrapping cars at that point, like it's pretty detailed. You can take the test there if you want to do the 5-day or 6-day, and you can just go through that whole process. But really, it's not bad at all. If you know what you're doing with your hands already, it's not too bad. I found some pictures of my very first install that was like an actual pretty big install, like not door hours, not a basic one decal thing. It was like actual 2 graphics per window. They overlapped, and that's called registration. You had to match the picture, and it was people, so you can't like screw up somebody's face and stuff like that. And it took me, I remember it took me so long. It was like 11 or 12 hours on that one install. Today, it would take me a couple hours, maybe. Like it's a completely different thing, but it was like, I was pretty good with my hands, and that was a hard install. Some of the prints were off, actually. I found out later, so I wasn't totally crazy. But it was still like, there's a definite skill once you get to like matching registration and stuff. Once you figure that out, you're pretty good.
Got it. And so, what are some of the most challenging things that you've encountered operating this business particularly?
You got a few I could pick from. I think we're going to go with probably the most obvious one, and that is when you're trying to merge white collar and blue collar, it is very difficult. So because I tend to be the middleman, I'm matching my clients, which are the white collar, the printers. They're all over in the major cities, and they ship it out to the installers. And then the installers are people like me. We're very blue collar. We grew up, in backwoods sort of area. Like we're very, redneck type people. And I say that in all love. Like I'm a proud redneck here, but like we want it very simple. If you make it too complicated, we're just going to quit because you're making it way more complicated than it needs to be. And so you have to match those two different types of personalities. You have the white collars who will give you very, very detailed instructions. Too much. And then you have the rednecks like me. And, I once, this is not a joke. This is not a joke. I went to go do this install, and I quoted it. I was like, I looked at everything and all the information I was given. I was like, oh, this falls under our minimum. I'll go do it. I'm already down there. I was hunting snakes in the Everglades. I went over to Naples to put it up. And on the way to the install, they sent me the PDF on what I was putting up. It was 68 pages. And I started to freak out. I was like, oh my gosh, I way underbid this. What's going on? And when I got to the install, I did it in about 45 minutes. So it actually was as simple as it was, but they went so detailed into every single tiny little thing that it was just too much. So you're merging those two things, and you have to convince the installer, like, no, it's actually not that bad. But the installer is also the person on site who's like, no, it is that bad. And you have to go back and forth, and you have to be understanding with both, because no matter what happens, it's your fault.
Yeah.
It's from the installer's perspective, hey, he showed up and he did his thing, but X, Y, and Z wasn't there, so it's my fault. From the client's perspective, they go, hey, he showed up a little late, so that's on you. Or, hey, he showed up and this got broken, that's on you. So that's like, you have to be that middle guy all the time. The next one would easily be the cash flow. So you work with these major retailers, and they will pay you when they're stinking ready. Like you can put net 30, you can put due upon receipt, but they will pay whenever they're ready. I know some people that worked for a very well-known company that I won't name, and they could not get paid. Like we're talking about a couple $100,000 job. It was humongous. And they took it to court. They got a judgment, all this stuff. They still didn't freaking pay because they were just that big. They're so big, they can do whatever they want. Now, not everybody's like that. You're pretty, you have to find the right people, but there's those types of companies out there. And you have, those companies that typically it's 30 to 60 days, somewhere in there. But they're always a little late. And then you have your installers who they balk when I say net 30. And I'm like, I'm not saying that because I don't want to pay you. I'm saying that because I'm hoping that I get my check from my client at net 30. And, So you've helped me with some of that with the factoring, and that's definitely been a big piece of at least staying up to date with everybody and keeping it there. But you're still always, just simple mathematics. If you're paying before you get paid, it's not always going to align up. So you kind of have to, you know, know who you can count on to pay on time and who's not, and judge your cash flow based on that. Because sometimes you look at your own books and you're like, dude, we got a terrible company. When then you look at, okay, if I was paid on time with all this stuff, we actually have a pretty good company.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to look at that and know what you're looking at, and not totally beat yourself up. It doesn't take the stress away because you still have to pay people.
Yeah.
But it does let you know, like, you're not crazy. It's just, Dave Ramsey put it the best. Business is easy until people get involved. And so if you get one bad person that just holds up a check, it's really complicated. And then on my end, I'll send out the check on net 30. But if it gets stuck in the mail, gets lost, we had a guy in California, his bill, he called us today. I was like, hey, we're 2 weeks late. And I was like, well, that's not right. I saw that check myself. And it just got lost. So then you have to call the bank, cancel the check, reissue, send it back out. And, it's just, you have just the basic business complications,
I think that's something that a lot of people that work B2B fail to understand, right? Is you could do a lot of work, and because you grow so fast, you can actually put yourself out of business, right? Like, you got to think, let's just say your margins are 40%. Okay. That means for every 100,000 you do, you're laying out 60,000 to do that work in labor, materials, potentially marketing, whatever you have to lay out. And then if you're net 30, you're not getting that money back until 30 days after the job is complete. So you could be without that money for 45 to 60 days. And depending on how many jobs you take, that can obviously enlarge and compound the problem. And a lot of people that are in B2B have that same challenge. And they wonder why there's no cash in the account. Well, there's no cash in the account because of their mathematically how it's set up.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that you've had to overcome as a business owner?
Well, that you kind of nailed that one right there. A lot of people don't realize when you have, and me myself, I'm struggling with this too. Like you're describing my business sometimes, because we will have months like it's almost like a roller coaster. Last year was the first time we had it was not straight. It was much more of a slow glide.
Yep.
Versus a lot of months you can see it was up and down like crazy. It is really hard to scale a business. You need the freaking cash. Yeah. But you can still, I mean, dude, we grew a lot. We doubled the business like multiple years in a row. And I think it's catching up to us. I caught up to us last year. We had a lot of cash problems, just not because we weren't making money. We had some employee problems, which that screwed up the cash. I could get on that all day long. But really when you do the other math, you're like, okay, you take away the employee problems and you just do the regular stuff, we still would have very similar issues because we're paying our stuff and on net 30, every Friday. So it's a little bit, before or after net 30, but like every Friday we send all those checks, and it's like, it's hard to keep up with those checks from the clients coming in and the checks to the vendors going out. And growing a business too quickly can just as easily put you out. So the answer I've countered it with is just more clients. So a lot of people prefer to have fewer clients with high volume. Okay. I actually did that. Here's a perfect segue into you asking what else I've struggled with. So putting too many of your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, depending on what industry you're in, like if you're doing like, okay, we're just gonna go with my industry because I can't speak to a whole lot of others. But I know in my industry, if you have all your eggs in one basket, which I did, my very first client, I was crushing it. I was just me and my dog Samson. We were traveling all over the country. We were making some serious money for a redneck, especially. We were doing about $250,000 a year, and then I upset the owner overnight, zero money, like that quickly. And the owner was like, you'll never be nothing. You'll never be as big as me. You'll never do all this stuff. Just all this stuff. And it was just this bad conversation. We've made up since, but it was just a rough snap of your fingers, and all of a sudden your money was gone.
Yeah.
And it was a tough lesson to learn. Like, oh snap, don't put all your eggs in one basket, because all of a sudden even if you're watching the basket, you make one wrong comment or you make one wrong mistake when I was just trying to be a good installer, and it's all gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I would rather have $150,000 a year clients, than 10 clients that were the equivalent gross. You know what I mean? Because any one of those clients, if you have too many that have too much of the percent come, you are walking on eggshells. You don't have freedom at that point. So that's one thing I have really pushed. And even now, we still have, I think, 6 clients make up the bulk. Those 6 clients probably make up 70% of our income. And then the remaining 80 clients make up the remaining bit of it. Yep. But that being said, those 6 or 7 clients, they have been my longest standing clients. So my relationship with them is really good versus these other 80 we started last year, and so you do $10,000 or $20,000 with them that year. That's fine. My first ever client, after that guy just cut me out, I picked up another client. It was my first ever client, and that first year I only did like 10K with them. Mm-hmm. But most years ever since, it's been between 200 and 300,000 a year. So you just have to build a relationship. You have to be all about the customer experience and make sure that you are there to take care of them and that the loyalty is there. So when I wrote my core values, it was all under the umbrella of loyalty to my family, loyalty to my team, vendors, clients, like every other core value supported that. And so I went to my new clients going, I will be that guy. And I was that guy with the first client, but the problem was I only had the one client. So when I pissed him off, he cut me out. So I was like, I'm not going to let that burn me to the point where I don't do that anymore, because I'm still going to be loyal to my clients. I just need to have more of them, and I need to work to build that relationship. It's not a fast thing. And, me and you have talked before about growing through acquisition. And the problem with that is that their loyalty is to whoever you're acquiring. And so they haven't, if their core values don't align with yours exactly, you could be bringing in a different level. Even if it's a better level of customer service, their loyalty is to that person. And so you have to be very careful on that growth through acquisition.
100%.
If it's under fewer people, if you have fewer clients,
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because people don't understand. Let's say you at least say, hey, I made a mistake, or I had a comment and it went south, but I since repaired it. A lot of people don't understand that it doesn't have to be a comment. It doesn't have to be a mistake. If you have 4 or 5 clients, and that's 80 to 90% of what you're doing or what your business is doing, and one of those goes out of business, or 2 of them go out of business, you could be down 20, 30% overnight. And now the whole dynamic of your business shifts and changes, and you're maybe laying people off. And that's why it's so important to, 1, have more clients, and 2, when you have more clients and you go above and beyond like you do, it's much easier to get referrals versus, having 4 clients and counting on one of those 4 or one of those 6 to make key introductions for you. So you got that figured out, brother.
Yeah, it was one of those things that it took me a minute to figure out, because I read Tim Ferriss in the 4-Hour Work Week. He actually talked about having, it's the 80-20 rule and cutting out the 80 to just focus on the 20. This is the one instance where I disagree with that, because if you cut out that 80 and they're growing and you're not actually giving them the attention, they could be part of that 20, and also, dude, if you lose one of the 20, that's a humongous slice of pie, and that, 20% doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it freaking is. It's a lot. You have the people that they're like, to some people, I think it's a meme now. It's one of those dumb motivational things, but they're like, to some people, 10 grand is life changing. To other people, 100 grand a month is a bad month. And I'm like, yeah, 100 grand a month is a very bad month. Like, that hurts. Like, that's losing money, so it's like, you get to that point and you like 20% of your 100 grand, 20 grand out the door, just gone because you pissed somebody off. And, I've actually taken myself away a little bit from client direct contact with clients for the most part, because I do I tend to speak my mind a little more than I should. And
You?
I've actually lost this client before that did about 100K a year with us. Thankfully, we had our, it's not as bad of a hit as it would have been, earlier on, but it's still like, you have to learn when you do. I'm going to back up. You do have to learn when you need to cut some of that. So we had
Yes.
that meeting literally this morning, where we have a minimum, and if you don't hit the minimum, then I was just like, oh, well, they're a good client, or I like that guy, we'll take it anyway. We won't make margin, all this stuff. Here's the problem is those little jobs take up so much of your time in other areas.
Mhm.
And so we would be like, oh, our minimum's 350. Okay, well, we'll do it for 200. We're just helping you out. That's fine. Here's the problem is that $200 job took more time than the $30,000 job we have that's even further away, that's even harder to do. That's a massive project. We spend more on that $200 job trying to get it taken care of, and even we're not hitting margin than you did that whole $30,000 job that was going on in freaking Lubbock, Texas. So you have to go, okay, look, we kind of made the decision this morning, like, okay, look, we are not taking anything if they don't hit our minimum, and we have to realize that we might lose some work from that. That being said, you will give the extra customer experience with the ones that are hitting it. You have to be really focused on this and really make sure that you're taking care of these other clients, and if you have downtime, we have, here's leads that you can chase and stuff, but it's like, I'm always nervous. We tiered the clients. Anybody that's doing 100K a year or more, or 50K a year or more, we'll take it, even if it doesn't hit margin, because I'll take the job. Even if I have to pay it all out of my pocket, if somebody's going to give me $100,000 rollout once a quarter or whatever, I'll go wherever you want. I'll help you out wherever I can. But if it's somebody that they did 20K with us last year and they're like, oh, well, what about our business relationship? I'm like, okay, I love you and I do value you as a client. However, 20K isn't even 10% of what this other client is doing. This other client did $400,000. So, if you want to break that tier, then we can talk. And you have to do it gracefully. I'm not saying to say it that way, but you have to learn when to not take the job. And saying no was very hard for me because I grew up with nothing, dude. I lived in tents. I was homeless. I've lived in third world countries. It's crazy, the stuff that I've seen. And so for me, I'll outwork anybody. And so I'll take this. I've built a whole business doing what nobody else will. I have taken stuff in places just so I could get the relationship with the client. I just think that we're in a different phase of the business now, and having to realize that has been difficult. I mean, even when places me and you go, some of our events, somebody's talking and I have to realize that guy's not talking to me. This event was pointless because he's not talking to me.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that anymore. This is for a sole proprietor or somebody that's just starting out. And it's not me being mean or saying I'm better than them. I'm just not at that stage anymore. And having the self-awareness to know that is really, really important. And it's probably something I lack for sure, because you having the mentality of being the biggest, baddest motherfucker in the room, but also the humility to go, I can learn something, is a very difficult dichotomy to really figure out. But at the same time, you do have to be honest with yourself and go, that wasn't for me. There was nothing in that book for me. I don't know why they recommended that, and I finished a book this morning. I'm not going to say because it's somebody me and you both know. And I was like, I just wasted 2 weeks of my life reading 10 pages a day in a book that does me absolutely no good. Or I knew this from day one, and it's kind of like when you first learn the difference between drive and discipline versus motivation. It's kind of when you learn that and you're like, oh, that's what they mean, and you start to figure that stuff out. But yeah, I mean, I could go about this all day. I'm so pissed about that book. Oh man,
you're gonna have to text me.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to text me what book it was, so I don't.
I knew it.
I'll tell you what, man. Yeah, I've been there. I've done it. I've actually done it with 2 so far, and his version was 75 hard. which is frustrating because you're going to finish it and you're like, why did I do that? But one of the things I want to key on, because I don't think it's just you that struggles with it, it's everybody that struggles with it, is saying no to work that doesn't fit. So
I agree.
to your point, if it doesn't meet your minimums, you gotta send it elsewhere. Well, for me, it takes the same amount of work doing a $20,000 financing transaction as it does for roughly 100,000. Okay, and the pay is 5 times greater. So I made a rule with my guys: anything under 15K, unless they have stellar credit, we can't help. And the reason we can't help is because that person also needs a lot of handholding. That's why I made a coaching group. To put them in the coaching group, they can read all the videos, and hopefully that group gives them enough content where they can go from doing 5, 10, 15,000 a month to 30 to 50,000 a month, right? And people do not understand that there's an opportunity cost to you saying yes. You saying yes to that small job can pull you away from somebody that's going to give you 200, 300, 400,000 in business.
Yeah.
Right. And the sooner you learn that as an operator, right, as an entrepreneur, the better you're going to be.
Yeah. And the hard part is, especially when you start getting larger, when 100 grand a month is a slow month for you, saying no to anything is 10 times harder, because now your overhead is also pretty high, and so you got employees to pay, you got yourself to pay. I just had another kid, so like there's a lot to it. And so you start wondering, oh, did I make a bad decision? Should I not have done this? Should I have taken it? Who knows when I'm going to get another job again or whatever it is. Because in my industry, it is feast or famine a lot. Like right now is our slow season. However, because this is the pro to diversifying and getting bigger and bigger. Like we're very deep on like 10 people, very deep. We got a lot of work with those 10, but the other 80 or 90, we're a mile wide and only an inch deep. But this is where that comes in. So we started tracking metrics last year. So there was some major stuff that happened with employees, and they're all gone now. We have a very good team now. But John, he told me, he's like, well, first of all, you need to figure out how that happened. Okay. And you need to go through your whole ship, do a SWOT analysis every single week for now. Now we do it every month. But he would do a SWOT analysis every single week, figure out where it's leaking, where the holes are, plug them all up, and get those systems where you're able to turn out people faster. So it was taking us a couple of months to turn somebody into a project manager. Now we do it where they're 80% there in a week. And Alex Hormozi talks about how you can be 80% there or 90% there. And some people, you can do that like in an hour, and then people spend 3 hours trying to get that last 10%. That is not valuable. Like, fine, some things, details do matter. That being said, if you're 90% there and you do that 90% across a myriad of things, that's like, I'm going off on some rabbit trail. That's crazy. Anyway, we started tracking these metrics, we started cleaning it up, and now we can turn a project manager that's 80% project manager within a week, within a couple of days, actually. And by the end of that first week, they're doing pretty well. And then all of the metrics as far as we're quoting, what kind of, what are the margins on it? What are this? What is that? We just started this whole spreadsheet and just tracking it. Each month we'd add a new metric that we needed to track. And we just got done with this month, and we do a Monday morning meeting every single day, every single week. And we realized that we have quoted just as many jobs as we did in August and December, which were our biggest months the last year. So we are on target for those as far as quoting goes, as number of jobs. So we're still getting the same amount of work. It may not all of it is like huge cash, but in January, which you can see in every other year, January it tanks. January and February is just super low, and then it picks back up through the year. And so we're like, this is really good. Like, we're actually maintaining the same level we did through the fourth quarter, which is freaking unheard of.
Yeah.
Like, it never works that way for us. So unless you get a one-off rollout. And so it's a big deal. You start tracking these metrics and having actual data and numbers to make your decisions off of, which is what helped us make the whole transition to like the whole, what's the word I'm looking for here? basically having those numbers and data has really made us look at everything that we were doing and make good decisions, like the minimum thing this morning.
Yeah,
We were like,
based off
okay,
statistics.
yeah. Well, I mean, for once, like this, I'm getting so many text messages. I need to turn my thing on Do Not Disturb. But he was just texting me about something. It was one of those things that's been dragging on for a month, and it's 2 jobs that pay $135 each. Like,
Oof.
those things have just been dragging on. How much time, how many hours has he spent doing that in the name of loyalty to our clients?
Yeah.
That is very difficult to know. Okay, am I being disloyal by not taking that, or am I
Yeah.
making a good business decision that is just, it's not worth to us anymore?
Yeah.
And so you have to know where those are. So anyway, I know there was a lot of rabbit trails. I get really excited about.
No, dude, this is amazing. So, without giving away anything that's proprietary, okay? Walk me through some of the systems you use and how you structure your week, meaning meetings, reviews, all that stuff, and like what softwares you use. So,
Yeah.
all that stuff for the average business owner, because most people do not do this stuff. So, run us through
Yeah.
some of those specifics, if you don't mind.
Okay. So the first thing I would do, I'm just going to assume your business. Let's see. I wish I would have known this when I was doing 500K a year. This is when I wish I would have done this, make these transitions, because the systems you make that get you to $250,000, you can get to about $250,000 on your own, 250K a year on your own.
Fighting it.
To get to 500K, you need somebody. And then to get to about $1 million, you probably need 2 somebodies, maybe 3, depending on whatever. So I wish I would have done 2 things. One is the whole, how do I, I'm trying to think of when I say this. All right. So you got to have somebody that does the stuff you don't want to do. But what I did instead, and I'm glad I did this, I got somebody that was making me money first. So I started by getting in another installer, somebody that I could send to go do the job and still it gets done, versus the stuff at the back end. I tried the back end stuff first, and it didn't work as well as I'd hoped. Like having an assistant, quote unquote, didn't go the way I wanted it to go. Because an assistant, you have to hold their hand. With an installer, they have the skills. They just need to go do the job, and you can go get more work. I wish I would have done that more, because what I did is I just went, oh, there's 2 of us. I'll go do a job. He does a job. We're making double the money. So knowing to do that, you want the money. The money has to come in. Money is oxygen to the business. It's what keeps it alive. So you have to have that happening. What we do now is the EOS 20 question thing. You ask yourself these 20 questions. That's our SWOT analysis. Do we have this? Do we have this? Do we have this? And you rank it from 1 to 5. And I actually have the team do it. I do it as well, but I have the team do it because for so long, I thought everything was going great. But when I saw their results, I was like, holy crap, this company is going to the gutter. And anything that was a 1 or a 2, I fixed. Literally that day, I fixed it. Whatever it took, we were going to fix this. Some of it takes time. Like, for instance, we did not have regular meetings. So nobody knew where anything was. Nobody knew what the metrics were. Nobody knew where our revenue was. Everybody was just hearing me say work harder. Like it was kind of one of those things. So I did that. Then I started this spreadsheet after I read Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David. He talks a lot about just what metrics to track, figuring out what metrics you need to track. And I didn't know what metrics to track, so I just started tracking a few, and that will kind of tell you what to track. So I started super basic. So we have a quote sheet. Every single job that comes in, it goes through, it gets a line item. You get who the client was, how much it was, or how much we quoted, and the date that it came in. It was super basic. And then we started adding how much we paid the installer. And then we have a margin, and we have a gross and a payout. Then we added its location. Then we put the client and the project manager's name. So we were able to track how much we're getting from different project managers, how much we're getting from different clients, how much we're getting from these different things, and just having this spreadsheet that had this stuff. Then while we were building that, we also started building a quote sheet. So depending on the type of install, it could be a vehicle wrap. You need to have, it's this per square foot on average. And these are the assumptions. We're going to assume it's clean. We're going to assume there's no removal. We're going to assume the graphics are on site or in the installer's possession. You just start putting these assumptions in there so that instead of getting the quote, we wanted to make the turnaround time faster. So instead of getting the quote, sending it to an installer to quote, coming back to us with a price, which could take, that's 2 days. That's easily 2 days. If a client sends us something, you send it to the installer, they'll check it that night when they get home, but they might get home at like 8 or 9 at night. Then they get you an email. So then you can't respond to the client till 9 o'clock the next morning. It just was slowing it down. So we know the industry pretty well. So you need to know your industry before you do this, but we made our quote sheet. And for different types of installs, whether it's a vehicle wrap, window, mullion, Dynoc, the different things, we just made a different set of assumptions for each one, a different set of questions so that the project managers knew what to reply to. That was the other complaint. We looked at what people were complaining. That is a great way to know what to fix. So I looked at over all the phone calls I got and emails. The turnaround time was a big one, and talking to too many people from the installers and the client. Both of them, those were major things, is how long it took to get something turned around. So we were like, all right, this is the straight turnaround time. This is what we're doing. It has to be back in the client's possession within 24 hours. No questions asked. We're going to change that to 12 here soon. So it happens very quickly. But yeah, so we started tracking that stuff, and knowing that there were too many people, we said, okay, the project manager is now the only person that everybody talks to. The project manager is your job to call this guy who does the quote. You call this guy who does this, and they do all the communicating. And it's all documented in Monday. So we started using Monday.com, and it's got some pros and cons. I personally liked HubSpot. The team did not, and they did way better with Monday. And so I was like, okay, I'm wrong. That's fine. However, we did make everybody's email attached to HubSpot still. So that there's a record of everything that goes through HubSpot. All the emails are in there. So, and it's AI isn't bad. I ain't gonna lie. It's matched up a lot of clients and PMs that are attached to clients, and it's done pretty well. I was very impressed with it.
Yeah.
So that's what we use for that. And that was the other thing. We had like 5 different programs that we were using across different parts of the business. So we've cut them down to like 2 or 3. Monday is where we keep track of everything. We have a spreadsheet that we fill out for our quotes. And then we have a, what's it called? Dropbox, which is where we put all of our photos, and we send a deliverables thing. The other piece that we did was I had each department head make their SOPs. And I actually put bonuses on it because you didn't hire them to do that. You hired them to be a project manager, not to make the system for it. So I put a bonus. I said, this is what I want from the original initial request all the way to deliverables. I want a step-by-step. And we broke it into 5 general steps. And each of those 5 steps has a whole sheet or 2 of paper with screenshots of what you click, step-by-step instructions. And we're going to actually do a screen recording Loom video with it being spoken to finish it off. And then we have a Google Drive that here's this step, here's all the information on that step, here's this step, all that. So we now have the whole process as far as what takes care of the customer and the client all in there. We have how we find installers, how we get installers, and how we do our giveaways. So we do giveaways for any project manager that gives us a job. And that's just to keep them involved, keep them engaged, make them want to work with us. And it has worked moderately well. We've had some issues with it for sure, but we're just trying to keep the project managers engaged. Those are the people that give you the work, so you want to make them happy. Some of my favorite people were project managers. So I have this one girl, her name was Stephanie. And she was so nice to me, and she took such good care of me while I was on the road that I was like, I'll do whatever you want, like whatever job, wherever it is, I'll take care of it. And even if it didn't pay me well, I just wanted to, she was going out of her way to make sure I was covered. So I was like, whatever I need to make you look good to your bosses is what I want to do. And so we take that same mindset to these other guys. It's like these installers want to make us look good for our clients. We want to make our clients look good for their bosses, yada, yada. So Monday was the big one there. Dropbox is just a great place to store all your stuff. And we have all my pictures dating back to 2013 when I first started, or 2014 when I first started. Yeah, money's in there. QuickBooks, obviously, for accounting, which that's another one is issuing POs so
Mhm.
that people know what they're getting and demanding a PO before you get started. Um, Not every company does, but if they don't, we now issue a formal estimate. Most of this is done through email, but we issue a formal estimate if they do not issue a PO. And it's like, here are the assumptions. This is what we're basing it off of. This is
Mhm.
approved. And it has a little approved sticker on there. We have to try to cover your bases on that because
Yeah.
gets a little dicey for sure.
You
The
know what's
newest one
crazy?
is
Everything you just went through, there's so much value in, and people will gloss over that.
yeah, yeah.
Seriously, writing out SOPs, designing a business so it runs mechanically without you. You can put it all on paper and
It
everything's
is
there.
so hard. Anybody that's listening, it is so hard. I am very bad at this, and this is not me being like negative self-talk. This is legitimately, it is so hard to think through. First of all, your next 5 moves. I'm very bad at that. I've gotten way better over the last few months, and I'm seeing that take effect. It was like when the ship was sinking, like, it was like trying to turn an aircraft carrier. So when we finally realized all this was going on, it took me like 5 months before we were positive cash flow again. Like 5 months of like pushing and pushing, and it was so stressful. It's still stressful, um, but yeah, putting it all on paper so that it runs well. That is the core. That is the meat of our business. Is the project management SOP, and I bonused her very well for making that. And then the SOP for the quoting,
Mhm.
we keep an eye on the industry. I check with other people and make sure that we're still within normal stuff, so we're not totally crazy. Um, but yeah, I built it to the way that I don't have to work inside my company, but a few hours a week. There are some things that I still have to do, but I would say 8, 10 hours a week is I have to, like, if just to run it, I have to do about
Yeah.
10 hours a week. That's pretty good because I've been working 100 some odd hours a week for the last eon. But I'm still working a lot, but the rest of it is toward building the business, looking forward. Like, me and you talking about growing through acquisition, talking about that what are we gonna make? What are we trying to make this look like? Stop thinking about just the number. Okay, what does that actually look like? How many people do you need to do this? What is reasonable for a project manager to be able to do every year? How much before we need another accountant in the office or another admin? Like, what is the capacity of what you're doing? And then the sales aspect is not even sales in our industry. It's not like you're selling a product. It's you have to be given the opportunity to try to make them look good. And
Mhm.
so you have very specific people you have to meet and very specific people you need to get in front of just to get a shot. And so I bought this program. This is the newest addition to our programs, and only a couple of us are in it. It's called a Zoom Info. I don't mind giving that out. Um,
Mhm.
it gives uh, it gives the contact information for almost every company and their employees, like cell phone numbers and emails. It's expensive, but I need these specific people. So I search in there the NAICS. I think NAI.
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
Industry code. Every
Yeah,
industry has a
so I
code,
typed in
guys.
the code of our industry, and there's all the companies that do it. I think there's like 30,000 sign companies in North America. Most of them are really small, though. I was reading this report in our industry, and I think it was the average of 3, 4 employees, and most of them are like one printer and one laminator and a few things. And most of them are that way. However, there are some behemoths in there, and
Yeah.
a lot of my clients make up probably half the industry in revenue. Like,
Mhm.
I would not be surprised if my clients, I'm trying to get more out of them, but they have limits on what they're willing to give one vendor, which
Mhm.
really is not cool. But I've used that thing to get in front of all of those clients. So if you have 30,000 sign companies, probably 3, 4,000 of them could be my clients. There's,
Yep.
a lot of those guys are not my type of guys. Like, a lot of them are just really small little things and they do it themselves.
Yep.
They don't need me. So there's only 3,000 people that I can talk to. You know what I mean? There's only 3,000 people that could give me work. So I got to make the approach in a way that like whining and dining and be where they are and stuff like that. So we're actually working on hiring somebody at business development because somebody needs to stay in touch with all those guys. Somebody needs to make the approach, track your conversations, make sure that you're staying in touch with them, make sure you're doing at least 5 touches, every month or whatever. Or if they're a new
Yeah.
client or if they're existing client, just make sure that we're talking to them at least once a month. We send out gift cards, we send out letters and thank you notes just to show our appreciation. So, I mean, that Zoom info was very expensive, but I think it's the one thing that's going to turn this thing around because you can only Google so many companies. Like I've Googled, I know almost almost every major or every major sign company that does at least 10 million, 5 million or more a year.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with almost everybody. You can look in our HubSpot. I was looking, so I'd use that initially, and I think there was like 5,000, 6,000 people in there, but there was already 2 or 3,000 companies in there.
Yeah.
So I have been like religiously reaching out to people over and over and over on my LinkedIn. I'm always connecting with new project managers and new companies. If I hear another company, I connect with them just so that, just the attachment, that there's a link somewhere along the way. And when I do reach out to a company and be like, yeah, I found you guys on LinkedIn and we really, we would like to work with you guys as well. And we have a lot of similar clients or whatever. Anyway, I can talk about this all day long.
Yeah, but dude, you know what's cool about this, brother? Like, we've heard you go from like how it was when you started, and we've heard the problems or challenges grow, and now the strategy, right? Think about it. When you first start, right? You're spray and pray. All right. Anyone that'll do business with you, please bring them here.
Yeah.
And now you're like, all right, there's 30,000 in a prospect pool, but realistically, only 4,000 are for me. How do I target those 4,000 and who do I put in charge of that? Right. That's the evolution of business, man. That is awesome. People can take a lot away from this.
Well, I appreciate that for sure. I mean, I'm in a very hungry. You caught me in a very hungry state. Like I've always been hungry, and I want to do some things. But I mean, you have to know what drives you a little bit. And I talked with John recently, and he really picked apart my vision, and he's not wrong. Like I did not have, even to this day, like I spent some time. You seen the new app on the Apple update?
No, because I won't update it.
Okay, well, there's a new app. It's called Freeform. It's like perfect for a vision board. I have never actually made a vision board, funnily enough. The closest I've come to is when I wanted my ZL1. I had it as the background of my phone. Like that's the equivalent of most I've done. So this thing, though, you can put pictures, you can draw, you can put text or whatever. So I did this whole thing on it, and it turned out to be like this first time I'm seeing this vision in there. And he had told me, John was like, look, you're not detailed enough. He was like, I agree that you will outwork anybody and you will never give up. He goes, but if you never give up and outwork everybody at being the best VCR salesman of 2022, he's like, you've got one oar and you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. You're not going anywhere. So you have to make sure that you have the details and you have exactly what you want, what you're going to do. You've got to have that because you're at that point where just working is not going to do you any good. You have to really think through what you're trying to do. You have to really know what you want. And, I've got 2 major things at the moment. I want to retire my mom. I want to freaking retire my mom. Now, if she wants to keep working, awesome. That's totally up to her, but I don't want her to have to work. Between all of my heart problems and how much I've been in the hospital and all the stuff I've done, put her through enough. So like, I just want her to be able to retire if she wants to. If she wants to keep working, good for her, but she doesn't have to. Yeah. And the other part is I want to give us a lot more breathing room. So the pandemic hit us very hard. It picked up later and we did grow, but again, we grew so fast that you didn't see much of it. Like it just consumed the cash as it was growing. And we more than doubled that year. It's awesome, but it was very difficult. And then you had that on top of employee problems. And it really hit us hard. It caught up to us in 2022. So I want to get us in a very solid, all the deals with the devil, I want to be out from underneath them by the end of this year. So those two major things are like the major drivers for me right now. So you caught me in a very hungry space because I'm sick and tired of this. Like I'd not worked this hard and not sleepless night. I got 2 hours and 41 minutes of sleep last night. I couldn't sleep. Like I'm so like something has to change, and I'm gonna freaking manhandle this thing to change the way I want it. So,
Bro, I love it. Let me ask you this: if you had maybe the top three things to give to somebody in business, what do you think? Three key pieces of advice, just because we're approaching, and I knew me and you were going to do this, dude. Me and you could do this like once a week and run like this every fucking time. Like I knew this was going to be that type of call, which I love, that people love. What are the top three things you would give to somebody tuning in on like, hey, this is what you need to focus on right now in your business?
I'm gonna tell something that Ed told us on our very first Arte thing. You need to save your money. I've done pretty good at keeping track of my cash, but I could have done way better. I could have been way better about it and had much more to show for it. So save some of your money. Obviously, reinvest and build your company. Don't get me wrong, you want to do that, but you need to save some for yourself, because if something were to happen, the pandemic, for instance, a lot of people went out of business and didn't have anything to show for it, even though they worked for 30 years, because they were not working on their own stuff. They were just putting it back in the business, not taking anything out. So have some cash. You need to have your finances in order for that. The next one would be know what you're actually going to get and work backwards. So read that book, The Next 5 Moves. So you're actually thinking 5 steps ahead, but you do need to know where you're actually going. Are you the type of person that wants to go all the way to $1 billion, or do you want to come out at 100 million or 25 million? There's not much more that somebody with $100 million net worth can do than somebody with a $25 million net worth. So are you just somebody that has to work? Can you just not sit still? So you're just going to keep going and going and going until you die? Or are you somebody that's like, I'm going to build this so I can sell it at 25 million so I can do whatever I want, or whatever? Like, know what you're actually trying to achieve. So yeah, the cash that, I'm having a hard time with the third one because there's a few options I could put in there. Nothing is, I got one for you. All right. This is one that is hard to put into words. I'm going to give it my best. Patrick Bet-David put it this way: business is war. It is very messy. So don't think that you're going to get it organized. Everything I just said sounds organized, but trust me, it is a freaking shit show all the time. Like there's never, like, you need to just know that you're going to be uncomfortable, annoyed. Stuff's going to come up. I think I posted a quote from Ed about it this morning. Like, it is just uncomfortable and annoying. Yeah. It is really frustrating. And you have to still know all that and take your emotions out of it. You don't want to be a psychopath, but Alex Hormozy said, the best CEOs, look at them through the time of their tenure. The best ones are even keeled the whole time. They are cold, hard numbers. They're making fact-based decisions. They're not using their emotions, versus the CEO of Gymshark. I mean, that whole thing. That dude, if you look at from when he started to where he is getting, it's just all over the map. He's super emotional about it. And he's a young kid. Fine. That's fine. But I know my biggest problem is that I tie how I feel to how the business did that day. Yeah. I just saw an email pop up and it's my daily earnings, where we were with it. I know that if I open that up and if it's not good, I'm going to be like, I didn't work hard enough today. I'm going to be judging myself for the next several hours. What could I have done differently? What do I need to do? Why am I not working hard enough? But dude, those things make you great too. You got to understand it will. Okay. Yeah. It's a double-edged sword. It is a double-edged sword. Okay. Because we all feel that way and we all tie ourselves at how we feel a lot of times. So how the business performs. I agree. I'm guilty. So let me ask you, for the people that don't know you, where can they go to find you? Where can they book you for a job? Like, leave us on that. I mean, you can try to reach out over jobs. Most of the time we work with pretty major corporations. So if the team is able to take on another job, awesome. If not, I can refer you to somebody that can take yours on or whatever. But On Instagram, AP1776. Pretty much active there, and that's about it. I mean, it all goes on to Facebook as well, but same thing, Austin Park on there. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm pretty active. So,
Brother, I appreciate you so much for coming on. You dropped
yeah,
a
man,
lot
thanks
of
for having me on.
a lot of awesome, valuable advice that people should probably listen to this one or two times and actually take notes of the little details, because most people don't get that granular, and you did. So I appreciate you,
Yeah.
and we're definitely got to do this again. We'll take it from
Yeah,
this
dude, that sounds
segment.
awesome. Yeah,
Well,
I get
I'd love to
excited
get
over
you
this
on.
stuff. So this is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I want you on for when you get the SaaS going.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Business Spotlight signing out.